Welcome to Corporate Nights. Tonight, I sit with a friend and a serial foodpreneur. Forbes described him as the man who knows what billionaires want for lunch. He moved back to Nigeria in 2008, and in a few months, he launched a sensation that drove Lagos crazy. In the last 10 years, he's built more food businesses that when you think about his condiments, only Richard Branson comes to mind. Welcome, Tolu.
That's a good one.
Welcome to Corporate Nights.
Thank you for having me.
Tolu, I don't know what. Do we go back to about a decade ago when we went for that job interview, or do we just keep our dark past to ourselves?
I mean, there's nothing dark about it, to be honest. It was quite a bright past. If we come to think about it, it started something that today we look back at and we just smile at.
All right, then I'm going to tell the story. So, 10 years ago, right?
It's more than 10 now.
Actually, yes, more than 10. Over a decade ago. Yes, about 13 years ago. Yeah, 13 years ago. We're in the UK. I was in the UK. I'm not sure how Tolu ended up there, but I ended up at a job interview. It was an unusual job interview. Foxtons, right? And it was one of those role play type interviews where there were only two black people in the room, and it was me and Chef Tolu Eros. Obviously, we didn't get the job. At least, I didn't get the job. I don't know if you got the job, but it was a great experience, and that's where I met this great gentleman here. I don't know, Tolu, where do I start from? There's so many things that we need to talk about. In 2008 actually, you started La Saison, and that was a restaurant where that was something Lagos was not used to in 2009. I think it was February 2009 you started it. You moved back in 2008 and 2009 you started it.
Yeah.
Lagos was not used to that. You turned a cafe into a gourmet restaurant, a hangout, and I think I went to one or two children's parties there. How did you start that, and did you know that was going to turn out to be what it ended up being?
So, funny story, my mom actually drove me to do this. And it's funny because people would think, I get this question a lot, that what did your parents say about you, like, wanting to be a chef? At the time when she made me start this journey, she didn't realize that I was going to take this path of being a chef. She'd always wanted to own a restaurant. And so when she had retired and I was done with school and she was kind of done with school fees money, it was like time for me to do something for myself. So she said she wanted to open a restaurant and she wanted me to help her with the business plan and just help her to work out the setup. So I came back on holiday in 2008 to help her with the business plan, just to help her maybe secure a location, figure out what she wanted to do, how she was going to do it. And as I was working on the plan, I got more and more involved in it. And I said to her, look, I want to just come back and do this, and I'm also going to invest into it. So I went back, packed up my bag.
So you didn't come back thinking you're going to apply for jobs and all of that?
No,
Okay.
I knew I was coming straight
For business.
into this.
Okay.
So I packed up my stuff, went back to the UK, packed up my stuff. I was done with uni already. Packed up my stuff and moved back to Lagos.
Okay.
And when I got into Lagos, I sort of just went head-on collision. Before I had gone back to the UK to pack up my space, I had sort of seen a bunch of potential locations. Everything was way above our budget.
Oh, wow.
Way above.
As with all things in Lagos.
My mom was now saying, oh, maybe we should consider something on the mainland. And I'm just like, no, that's not happening. Not what I have in mind, because obviously I've been in the UK, I've been eating out a lot, I've been going to different types of restaurants. And I wanted to sort of bring that experience back home, because I couldn't find anywhere, especially anywhere that was Nigerian owned. Everything was owned by the Lebanese, and they were doing the basic, just like pizzas and burgers and things like that, And then in January, after I had moved back, I started looking for a place actively. And I found it so difficult to find a location within a reasonable budget. And then I met a friend, Benny, who then introduced me to his uncle, Tosan, who owned La Saison.
La Saison, where the location was. Yeah, okay.
So it was a cafe cake shop, So he introduced me to him, and we sort of just hit it off immediately.
Okay.
He said to me, "You are like the younger version of me," and as a matter of fact, why he introduced me was he was looking to sell the restaurant. Okay. And so I didn't have enough money to buy the restaurant outright, so we ended up going into a partnership. And so we invested our own money into it, and then we went into a partnership, and he stepped back, so I focused on the restaurant.
You just took over.
And so what I did was we started off as a cafe first, and then as it was getting towards the period when I knew that my people were coming back from Jan, and Yankee, as we used to call it, Jan and Yankee boys. IJGs were going to be back soon.
IJGs was not even a thing back then.
It wasn't really. It was just the fact that we knew that they were going to come soon. So around like September, October, we stopped the restaurant, the cafe, and then we built up the restaurant, like did all the finishing, the decor, the renovations and everything. And by December, it was a hit. You know.
And shortly after that, I'm sure in about less than 2 years, Cookie Jar came along. There was a confectionery business. It was number one in Lagos, and I dare say across the country. Everybody literally wanted to dip their hand in the cookie jar. And I think that even made CNN refer to you as a rising star, bringing heat to the Nigeria's gourmet scene. I mean, my question is this, Tolu. Most people set up bakeries in their kitchens on a small scale, and they never ever migrate into a bigger sort of factory. You set up one at ShopRite at the time. You had, Cookie Jar was the one place here. But did you know it was going to be so big? What exactly made all the difference with Cookie Jar? Because I remember there was a time the only cake or confectionery or cookies anybody wanted was Cookie Jar. Then ShopRite came and that changed everything. So did you plan Cookie Jar to be that big? I mean, you just finished, or you just started, you just rounded up La Saison, and then Cookie Jar came. What was your plan when you started Cookie Jar?
So between La Saison and Cookie Jar, there was a serious downtime.
Okay.
And that's a time that not a lot of people know about. La Saison didn't do very well financially.
But he had the buzz.
It had the buzz, and it definitely did well for my portfolio.
Okay.
So from the front end, everything looked great.
Okay.
From the back end, I was losing money. It was literally a sinking ship.
Oh, wow.
And so at that point, when I realized that it was going to be very hard for us to get it out of where it was, and that was because I always say Nigeria wasn't quite ready at the time for what we were churning out. For the quality of the food we're putting out, people weren't willing to part away with anything more than 3,500
and that was for La Saison.
And that was for La Saison. So La Saison shut down, and between La Saison and Cookie Jar, I had a few spells and a few things. So I started, I don't even remember when I was doing this alternative energy hustle, and then I did a real estate hustle, and I moved into 1004 to set up a real estate office. Okay. As a matter of fact, the apartment was a show apartment for 1004.
So for a moment there you pivoted from food into real estate and energy.
And then in the process of setting up the real estate office, I started baking cookies.
Ah, I see.
And so the whole cookie thing started out of a dream, which is a long story. They occupy Nigeria, stuck in the house, all of that. And I started making these cookies.
House sounds familiar.
Yeah, Occupy Nigeria, 2012. There was this fuel subsidy. Okay. It was riots everywhere. Everyone was stuck in the house, almost like now. Right?
Exactly, that's what I meant. It sounds familiar.
So at that particular point in time, I channeled my creative energy into. I didn't know how long it was going to last for, and I just didn't want to sit at home doing nothing. So I immediately started baking these cookies, and it just hit. I guess I was doing something different in terms of the branding, the packaging, the quality of the bakes, and it was just getting a lot of attention from influencers, brands. From brands, it just was getting a lot of attention, and that was because quality was always our number one priority, and still is.
And it has always been, exactly.
Yeah, it still is. But what happened after that was I expanded too quickly.
Okay.
And one of the mistakes that I am grateful that I made then and not now, because then I expanded too quickly because everything was going very well. I opened my first store on Admiralty Way. I got kicked out of 1004 because my traffic was too much and there was a residential space.
Absolutely.
So I moved into Lekki as well. And then I got an opportunity to get a space in the Palms at a discounted rate in dollars. I didn't realize that was going to be the biggest mistake of that time. And so we got this location in the Palms, and then the dollar crashed. And we went from 150 naira to 300 naira overnight. And my rent went from 750K to 1.2 million naira, 1.5 million naira a month.
I mean,
overnight.
That seems to be the story with entrepreneurs, where there's so much uncertainty in this part of the world, and things can change all of a sudden. But then again, I'd ask, even with that, even during the stint of Cookie Jar, that earned you so much because I know at some point you had a deal with ShopRite, the German brand Mille as well. Signed you up. You were ShopRite Nigeria's first ever brand ambassador. And I know you've gone on to work with so many other Nigerian brands, GTB, Maggie, and so on. I remember at some point I was thinking, what time does Tolu actually have to cook? And without giving too much, I just want here's my question. In terms of brand versus craft, how much of an impact would you say those endorsement deals had on your career? And would you advise a young upcoming chef to either focus on positioning himself for deals or focus on his craft or combination of both?
It's a combination of both. So I first started off by focusing on my craft. Bear in mind that I didn't go culinary school. It was only up until recently that I started attending like culinary courses. And that was just only to maybe some certain level of certification and just to make myself feel like, okay, I'm not missing out on anything. But I spent a lot of my time building my craft, and it is
the brands coming.
It was the craft that attracted the brands, you see. So it was building the craft and building a certain level of confidence in my craft that made me to start celebrating my craft. By the time I started celebrating my craft, the brands wanted to be a part of that sort of celebration, right? And so food businesses, Mille being one of the supporting businesses in the food industry,
it's an ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of the system. I bought onto the idea and they brought me on as their first brand ambassador. And as I was working with them, I learned a lot. For me, working with brands is a platform, not just to earn extra, but for a platform for you to learn more.
About the corporate side of things as well.
Exactly. So I traveled a lot with Mille. I was able to see the behind the scenes of a lot of other food businesses, and I just gained a lot of mileage from them, with the contacts and all of that. And when I transitioned from Mille to ShopRite, it became even bigger because ShopRite is Nigeria's largest supermarket chain and one of Africa's largest supermarket chain, as a matter of fact. But it didn't come easy. I literally had to go to South Africa to go and fight for that deal. So there was sort of like a teaser. I got a call. Somebody said, "Oh, there's this idea we're working on," but I didn't wait for it to happen. I went and chased for it because I was confident in my craft. So I went there and said, "Look, I'm going to show you guys my craft. I'll buy my ticket. I'll put myself in accommodation, and I'll show you guys what I."
So you showed that you wanted it, and you showed the value when you got it. Absolutely.
And so that was sort of a stepping stone for me to get here. So I had done a lot of work with them, and I had built my craft even more over the period of time that I was working actively. Things have sort of slowed down a little now thanks to COVID and a few other issues before COVID. But that platform had given me an opportunity to be able to sort of celebrate my craft even more.
I mentioned earlier, Forbes described you as the man who knows what billionaires have for lunch. Sorry, I have to ask, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers will want to ask as well. What does a billionaire eat for lunch, typically? And I also have to ask, who do you think enjoyed your food the most? Was it Aliko Dangote? Was it Mike Adenuga? Was it President Macron, who I've also hosted, by the way? Was it TD Jakes or was it Laurie Hill? Who licked their plates?
Now, the thing about billionaires is that they don't like their laundry aired. So I wouldn't tell you who licked their plates. I would tell you for a fact that everyone has enjoyed and feedback has been great. In terms of what they eat what everyone else eats, to be honest. Sometimes not as fussy as most people are, right? Sometimes the people who are not billionaires are even fussier.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Billionaires. The one thing that all of them do have in common, though, is that one, they are very health conscious, and two, they are quality over quantity.
They know good food.
Yes.
I have a tough question, and before I ask the tough question, I'll just say, guys, if you've been enjoying my interview session with Chef Eros, please subscribe to our YouTube page, Corporate Night Show on YouTube. We need your subscriptions. We need you to follow us, like us, and share our page. Thank you. Back to you, Tolu. You've built so many brands, from Cookie Jar to Se2E02, Eros, which is your empire right now, to La Saison. Like a father with many children, of all your brands, all the brands you built in the last decade, in order of which you're most proud of, how you rank them?
Good question, and tough question. If you had asked me which one was my favorite, I won't be able to answer
That's
that
why I said
because
proud.
that's like asking your father who his favorite child is. But most proud of, Cookie Jar has probably been the one that has gotten the most amount of traction and has gotten us to where we are the fastest. But Eros actually has been the one that I would say has represented the Eros brand the most. And I'm very proud of what we have done. It's hard to say. It would be between, it's really hard to say because if you think about Eros and Gourmet as well, and with every single brand that we have introduced to the market, we have first of all been the first doing it.
Yep.
Secondly, we have sort of set a trend and has become a benchmark for everyone else who is looking to do the same. Cookie Jar, for example, came in and started off with just cookies. Now, a lot of brands are doing cookies as well. Then again, back in the day, no one was doing it. Then Cookie Jar focused on packaging and dripping chocolate cakes. Almost everybody is doing dripping chocolate cakes now.
I remember that.
You know, and packaging is very important to brands, you know. We also use social media as a tool for communicating and selling.
So it's obvious that you're most proud of Cookie Jar.
But then
because even in talking about all your brands, you seem to talk about it more passionately.
You know, it's hard because then you take Eros, and Eros is first of all the first authentic Nigerian restaurant with a modern twist. And what that means is that we take street food and we convert it into something that can be sold in the international market, that the Caucasians and the non-Nigerians are intrigued by it. It looks beautiful enough to take a picture of, you know, and has literally gotten the most, for me, Eros has gotten the most international press because of the fact that no one has seen Nigerian food in that light before. And it's also such a beautiful artsy space. You know, there's art everywhere. You know, from the walls through to the plates, there's so much art in there.
And I love your puff puff. The
puff puff party, right? And it comes in a calabash, you know, all of that. You know, then you take Eros and Gourmet, and Eros and Gourmet is constantly delivering an unforgettable culinary experience. Every time you go to an event, you know it's us. You know, we have all these catering events where we have dancers, drummers, firefighters presenting a new course. You know, like it's hard to say which one I am most proud of, but if I was to pick any one, I would say Cookie Jar. Cookie Jar is 8 years old and still standing. It's not easy to do that in a market like this.
From Cookie Jar to La Saison, or from La Saison to Cookie Jar to Eros and Eros and Gourmet, you've built so many fantastic brands, Tolu. The Tolu Eros way. Thank you very much, Tolu. It's been an amazing session. If you were inspired by my session with Chef Eros, you really don't want to miss our next show. Catch us on Corporate Night Show on YouTube, same time next week. Thank you.